Here on the Made It Music podcast with Noreen Pernair. I pronounced it right. I know I did. Hey, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's going to be an awesome episode.
Yeah.
I can feel it. I love your energy. I love when you walk into a room and you just know somebody is like, hey, that person means business.
Yeah.
They're serious about
I'm
what
actually
they
wearing
do.
a shirt that says that, though. So
Yeah. Exactly. But I love it. We're going to dive into how you've been a part of bringing the pop music industry to Nashville, which a lot of people don't realize that. That's kind of a new thing.
Yeah, totally.
So I want to dive into your story. What was the first moment that music impacted you and you knew that you had to do something with it career-wise?
Well, I think it was probably when I was growing up and my mom would play Carly Simon records in our house and she would try to teach me how to play them on piano. And I was like, oh, wait, you can actually learn songs that are like already recorded. And I kind of put two and two together that like you can actually write the songs yourself. And all of that I think just impacted me. And I started writing songs on my own in New York and then found out about Nashville, found out about Belmont, moved here and did the music business as a major, but still was writing on the side, trying to do that whole thing. But that's where I got into interning because I had to for school and started interning in publishing companies just because I was like, how do I listen to songs all day? That's what I want to do. And then from there, I realized that's what I really wanted to be doing and should be doing. So,
yeah. So kind of from an internship. And then when did you like get hired? How did you get hired first?
So I was interning at BMG Publishing. I did a New York one and a Nashville one. And then kind of took off from interning for a semester. And then BMG kind of called me up and asked me to be a receptionist my last semester of school. And this was when I was trying to decide if I wanted to be a writer or just, do the business side. So I took the job, still doing school, still trying to write a little bit. I think it was probably 3 months into my job was when my boss now, Daniel Lee, was the one who said, like, I think you should be a publisher. I know you want to be a writer, but I think you'd be really good at it. You like ask the right questions. You always are talking about writers and you seem passionate about it. So just him saying that to me, I think really was like God saying, this is what you should be doing. And ever since then, honestly, it was like every door was a lot easier to open. It wasn't me just like forcing myself into rooms and trying to be a songwriter and stuff. So
yeah. Well, you know when you're in a situation where it feels like you're pounding at something. You also know a situation where it's like, okay, God clearly put this in your path.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm so glad I listened because writing was awesome. It was fun, but like it was if you're athletic and I'm not, I'm working twice as hard to be like normal base level,
Which I'm not.
Athletic?
I don't know if you know me or not, but athletic is not in my strengths finders thing or whatever. I work on it. I'm trying to become athletic, but that's not what I'm famous for.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
You've talked about, and we talked a little bit even before the interview, you say to do the job before you get the job.
Yeah. What
do you mean by that?
I think that was something I figured out earlier on in my career. Just being a receptionist was awesome. You're meeting people all the time. I still get to listen to songs at a publishing company. But I realized if I wanted to move up, like I had to figure out how to be a real publisher, how to find songs, how to put writers together in a room, how to find new writers, how to pitch songs, how to get emails to people I can even pitch songs to. So a lot of that I realized was the only reason I was going to move up. And that kind of was the basis for how I got this job now and doing a lot of things on my own and events in town. And that's really how it got led to the pop scene in Nashville because I realized there was a huge untapped market that no one was really dealing with or knew what to do with. So I kind of took that on as my own and I was like, oh, I'll be like the pop person at BMG. That's how I'll move up. That was like kind of my goal. And it kind of just led to this bigger thing. So, yeah.
So you weren't waiting for somebody to create a job for you and give you permission to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, which probably got me in trouble a little bit, but like it was worth it. I mean, I'd look for that in interns and for assistants now too and coordinators and, what are you actually doing like already? Or what writers are you working with? What artists are you working with? Like, who are you managing? Who are you like? What songs have you gotten cut? Or just showing that you can actually do it without having the job because you should want to do it so badly that you're already doing it and not being paid for it.
Yeah.
And I think people see that in like younger talent. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you hit on that. I mean, that's something that our our company, as I'm sure yours is too, we're always looking for great interns.
Totally.
And we started a model that we call the apprenticeship program. So it's kind of like an
Love
internship on steroids, but like something for people to actually start getting paid doing music to really learn. Because you get in the classroom, like obviously you went through Belmont, but how much did you learn after getting out of the classroom?
Oh, yeah,
like,
so much more. Yeah. And also just the fact that like music industry stuff changes so fast that like you can't really like put that into a textbook and like teach that as it's happening necessarily. You know, it's like it's already old, it's already dated, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So as far as getting hired at Altadena, a lot of people maybe aren't familiar with the story of Altadena, but it was started by one of the legends in the music industry, Busby, who, you know, we unfortunately just lost just a few short months ago at the time of recording this. So our, we were just all kind of blown away.
Yeah.
One of the best people that I know in the industry. I'm
100%.
sure that you learned
Yeah.
a ton from working with him, but he started Altadena as a joint venture with Warner Music, and it was kind of an extension of, you know, himself and his own success, having cuts and success with Pink and Lady Antebellum, being both in the pop and, you know, country spaces.
Yeah.
So what was the journey with you, like becoming the creative director there? Because that's what you're doing today, is creative director.
For sure, yeah. So it kind of stemmed from what Busby and my boss Daniel they were doing at BMG. They were signing writers to artist development deals on the publishing side through Busby's JV there with like Ryan Griffin, Carly Pierce. They had a producer named Ben West already signed there. So they were really growing their joint venture together. And I think Busby really wanted to be a part of all aspects of it. The publishing side, of course, but also the master side, which we all know is where the money is now in music anyway. And also being a part of the management side and having a say in all sides of it. So I think that was kind of his brainchild. But like you said, yes, also having a foothold in pop and country in LA and Nashville. But yeah, I was just the receptionist at BMG, and Daniel was the VP there. Him and I got really close, and always were talking about songs and things like that. And he was the one who really stuck his neck out for me and told Busby, this is the person we should bring along. And with everything going on, I ended up being the first employee and kind of, you know, helped choose the name, and I got to like figure out, you know, what we were actually doing, and it was the best learning experience. And Busby took a chance on me when I had no track record, and you know, he just believed in what I was doing and my hustle and stuff. So I feel so grateful, and he was the most generous, like the best human, like you said. So yeah, I felt so lucky to be there. But yeah, so started being the creative director there, which really means just, you know, putting writers in rooms to get songs and pitching those songs, hopefully getting an artist placement. So
meaning you're helping set up co-writes.
Yes, helping set up co-writes in LA sessions.
So they call it co-write here, and it's called a session in LA?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a different language, you know. But yeah, so that's basically the bulk of my job. And then also listening to songs my writers turn in, giving critical feedback, hoping to get the song to a better place. And then just, you know, coaching the writers, encouraging them, making them be the best that they can be, so that when they go into the room, they feel super excited and feel that they can write the best song that day. But yeah, so was really hard to do that in Nashville. And then with my work in pop and stuff, I ended up moving into the LA world as well. So I work with our writers out there and travel to LA once a month back and forth. So.
That's awesome. So you touched on some of the elements, but if somebody was new to Altadena, what exactly is it?
Yeah.
What are all the things that you guys do?
So I really feel like it's a hub for writers and artists and producers for us to be kind of like the intermediary between either their publishing company, their label, or their management company. It's a partnership with Warner Chappell on the publishing side, a label imprint of Warner Records, and then also a management partnership with Red Light Management. So it has a lot of aspects to it, but like it's not like if you sign to us, you have to sign all three away or whatever, you know. So we have artists on just the label side, someone just publishing, some on all three. So yeah, it's really, I feel like, a hub, and for us to be that point of contact for, if you're signed to a major label, sometimes you can get lost and feel like you're not paid attention to. So we are kind of the ones where we give all the attention and make sure things are getting done, but then also have the major resources of a Warner. So
sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the best of all worlds.
Yeah.
So who are some of the writers, artists, producers that you're working with currently?
So in Nashville, we just signed this artist named Lindsay Lomas. I'm really excited about. She's a label, publishing, and management side. She's 16, soulful R&B pop artist. She's amazing. We have Carly Pierce, Riley Roth, Ryan Griffin, on the artist side here in Nashville. We signed an artist named Connor Matthews on the pop side as well, who's out in LA. And then we have producers Ben West, Cameron James here in Nashville, an amazing writer named Emily Shackleton. And then in LA, we also have a producer named Ryan Daly, who was Busby's finisher for so long, and a great writer as well. And then
Busby's what for so long?
Finisher. So
Finisher.
that's an LA term.
Maybe explain
Sorry.
that.
Yeah. What is?
I don't think I've actually heard anybody use that term here before. Maybe explain what that means.
So basically, Busby would go into a room, like a writing session, a co-write, and start a demo, start a track, and then he would send it to Ryan afterwards to basically finish it up, punch it up, add sonics, fix the vocal comp, everything, and then send it back to Busby, and maybe Busby would add a few more things, take things away, and then it'd be done. So he was kind of like the one that would help finish the actual demo process, since how many songs you write and like how many demos you end up having, and then also producing records. And so he helped with that a lot, and then also was the main reason why some of those demos got pushed along to become releases. So
they sound great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and for Busby, it was a huge part of producing the actual records he was writing. So that was super important. So that was Ryan, and then we have a writer named JP Clark also in LA, and then another top writer named Liv Moraldi out there. So
that's awesome. Well, you got a full plate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you kind of hit on what you do as a creative director. Can you talk a little bit about your passion for pop music and like how are you bringing that to Nashville? Maybe some of the challenges. Some of the breakthroughs you've seen even since you've started doing it.
Totally. I think when I started trying to do pop stuff in Nashville at BMG, I didn't realize there was already like a scene happening, artists like Sircina, they were already kind of making these crazy like leaps and bounds in the sync world. And then I realized, you lift the rug up and there's this huge community of writers not connected and don't know each other, but kind of everyone doing their own thing in different pockets. So my main goal was to connect people, and I put on a pop writing camp, and it was 24 writers all unsigned, and we did a showcase and 3 days of writing, and then everyone at the end of those days of writing would, play the song that they wrote. And then everyone realized, I think after that camp, that they missed hearing the songs, that they're like, oh, wow, I got so inspired. I felt almost competitive in sometimes, but we kind of started these things called pop hangs. So every month now, it was started at my house. It's kind of grown from 10 people to 80 people at a time, all in a room, producers, writers, artists, playing songs, all doing pop stuff, trying to get better, trying to meet new co-writers in town. I've brought Busby to them. He's given feedback. I've brought producers and A&Rs and managers and publishers, and people are so excited about it, but they don't know really what's happening. And those are like the best events, I feel like, to see what's really happening in town here and
so
how
pop hangs.
Yeah, call them pop hangs. Yeah, Altadena pop hang, whatever.
Was this an Altadena thing, or was this something you were doing even before?
It was something I was already doing before, and then I feel like Busby was gracious enough to let it kind of be an Altadena thing, and really let me absorb that into what our company stands for, and really developing new talent and bringing community and culture to Nashville. And I've also started doing them in LA as well. So I think like a huge part of what Nashville is so special, and that's why people come here to do pop now, because they crave community. They crave people who are open arms and want to write with each other and aren't competitive in some ways. And I think Nashville's special in that way. Challenge wise, I mean, it obviously I feel like the bulk of pop music is still happening in LA, and I think that just creates kind of like a distance for publishers and managers being able to pitch songs out there for writers here. And there's still, I feel like, kind of a quote unquote like stamp on pop music here called like Nashville pop. And, it may not feel as competitive as LA, But I would argue
people just assume because it was written in Nashville, it sounds different.
Exactly.
Or has a
sonically behind or something. But yeah, I would argue there's still competitive music being written here, and Nashville is obviously known for storytelling and lyrics and having depth, and I think that really like resonates in LA for when it's more sometimes quantity over quality. So yeah, I think there's definitely challenges and there's definitely like strides that still need to be made. But I think we're getting closer as A&Rs and labels really move here and set up tents here. And once an artist breaks out of here, I think it'll just help the entire community here. So
you hit on two things. I want to dive a little more into the pop hangs because I think that's such a brilliant thing. And props to you for kind of just going and starting it. That's amazing. What kind of like how do you structure them? Do people show up and they just bring their songs and they're kind of sitting in a circle, or what does it actually look like if you go to one?
So the kind of how they are now, we would do them at Warner just because they're gracious enough to let us use their space. But it's probably everyone shows up at 7. 30 minutes of just hanging and mingling. Everyone has to bring a snack, a drink, a dessert or something. Okay. So it feels like a little bit like potlucky.
So kind of like a potluck. Okay.
But yeah, and then when we're ready, I just am like, all right, who wants to go first? And then you bring your demo on your phone and you plug into an aux cord. And depending on how many people there are, we do verse, chorus, verse instead of the whole song because we can be there for hours. But it's just the most magical experience. You feel so excited. And for me too, like I haven't been in the industry that long, but I get so inspired leaving them. And I'm like, this is why we do it. It's like you're seeing the next generation and seeing people get signed from it, seeing people, songs have gotten cut from it because people have met there and they've written afterwards. And
so is there somebody giving feedback after each song, or is it more just listening, kind of show and tell?
It's different every time. I really encourage writers who are there to kind of give feedback like after they hear the song to each other, and someone's like, oh, I would have done the post this way, or oh, have you ever tried this sample package for this song? It would be perfect for that, or oh, have you tried doubling the chorus in the last time or something? And
so
just
kind of feedback
in the room. We've done a sync version of it where I've brought, sync people, and then they give really specific feedback on why this could work, why this couldn't work. I've started doing ones where like an A&R maybe calls in from LA and they give, here's who their roster is and who they're looking for, like what kind of songs they need. And that really helps writers here know like what's kind of going on in other markets. And,
I love that. That's so awesome.
Thank you.
So if people are interested in attending one of these, how do they do that? Is there like, I assume you're not just able to let anybody in.
Well, I try to make it exclusive enough so it feels like there's value to it, but also inclusive enough so that it doesn't feel like it's like this weird like culty thing that like I get to decide who's good and who's not, whatever. Sure. So I don't have like an email list because I feel like it can be a lot of people, and I want it to be different people every time. So you still keep coming back. So people usually just like DM me on Instagram, or like it's word of mouth a lot of times, or someone gets my email and they're like, hey, I want to come, and I'll listen to some songs, make sure that they know how to write songs.
Yeah, totally.
There's a little bit of a base level. But
so you're filtering out some stuff.
But also it helps me too, because then I'm, the first ears on songs coming out of Nashville. So it's win-win. I'm hearing 80 new songs in a month in one night, and I get to hear what's happening first. So it's the best.
Are there any success stories that you can share that have kind of come out of those?
Our newest writer, Liv Moraldi, we signed from it. This was a pop hang maybe a year ago that Daniel and an A&R in town, Patrick Waters, were at. And after everyone played songs, they encouraged them to send the songs that they play that night, and Liv and Daniel connected, even though I was working with Liv for maybe a year before that too, and just helping her in co-writes and stuff. But because of that, they connected, and Daniel was kind of like, wow, this is incredible, and we need to work with you. So that was probably the most recent one. But in LA, there was a song that got cut from an artist on Atlantic because 3 unsigned writers met there, and then they wrote a song together, and then one of their managers pitched the song, and they got a placement from it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So people can just DM you on Instagram. We can put a link to her socials and everything in the description below. So
cool.
Don't blow her up with bad songs. Some good songs.
It's okay. You have to listen to everything. You just never know. Buster taught me that. Like he would listen to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of fun things in your Instagram.
There are fun things. That's one way to put it. So the pop hangs. So I guess what are you doing that's working, or maybe just things you're trying, because all of us are sort of just trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
So how are you overcoming the Nashville pop stigma, or finding ways to kind of get around that?
Well, sonically, I think it's just me having my ear to the ground in LA, knowing what's kind of happening because I'm out there so much. I was there 9 times last year. So that helps, I think, our producers here knowing like, okay, well, here's the bar, and they're also just amazingly talented already, but knowing like, okay, this is what's happening, taste wise, trend wise, at least for them to know where the ballpark is.
Sure.
But then I think also from this pitching standpoint, it's having the relationships out in LA and New York and London and Atlanta, and being able to actually pitch songs from writers here instead of, kind of like what I feel like sometimes what could happen is, you send it to the major that you're with, or, for us to be Warren Chappell, and then hoping that it actually works. But really, putting the work in to have the relationships myself so that I can, get those songs heard by the people who actually listen to records. So, yeah.
So if just to give some specificity to it, if you're coming back, well, let's just put now as the example.
Yeah.
If you're in a kind of meeting with one of your writers here that's trying to do pop, how would you describe what you're talking about? Like what is LA doing now that Nashville kind of needs to take note of? And this is obviously always changing, but
totally
specific to kind of right now.
Yeah. I think it's also the part of that question is what is not happening anymore necessarily. I think, there was a huge Latin movement, and I think I get pitched a lot of songs where people are trying to do like a Spanish verse.
Yeah.
And I think that's not necessarily a moment anymore. Same thing even with just like extremely urban songs. I think there was a huge wave of just, a lot of songs going #1 that were just straight up rap songs.
Yeah.
I don't know if that will happen in the next 2 years. But also I think like pitching for a lot of artists, especially DJs, people send me, piano vocal, guitar vocal tracks. I don't think necessarily like that is the way to do it anymore. I think people still want to have some produced out version and hear what's special about this track. And a lot of that happens in production. What's, like little ear candies and, little like hooks in the actual production. So I think that's important to keep in mind too, and not let it be super open. But yeah, I think also an amazing like sounding vocal, just so clear, out in front of the mix. It's super important to hear that.
Sure.
I think that's important in pitching, and I think in LA, I think people know to put the presence and the importance on a vocal in a mix. That's, I feel like, the most common mistake here. So yeah, I'll think on that more too.
Yeah. No, those are some really good. I'm putting you on the spot with that, but that's awesome, and I'm sure people from Nashville listening now will get a lot of value out of that too. So
hopefully we'll move out of the TikTok phase too, and like not be
What do you mean by that?
And not signing artists just because they're like going viral on TikTok. I don't know.
TikTok.
Hopefully we move out of that. I don't know.
Man, I am so out. I feel like I'm just.
Do you have it downloaded?
I have it. I have the app, but I've got on it like a total of 2 times. I have 2 girls. They're 5 and 2, so they're not quite to that age yet. I'm kind of like, man, do I want them to get into that? I don't know.
I know some people's favorite artists are like just TikTok artists, and like that's it. It's insane.
It's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, how much of that are you like as a creative director, A&R talent finder? I mean, are you on TikTok every day, like looking for the
Not
next
necessarily.
thing?
I mean, it definitely is one of the many things to consider when signing someone. Like you have a huge fan base on this very popular app. But Warner has this thing called Sodatone. It's an amazing
called what?
Sodatone.
Sodatone.
It's an amazing like A&R research tool. So. Yeah, so I know that that's kind of how they find a lot of artists, and they have a lot of access to analytics through that.
So is Sodatone an internal software that they've created?
So they purchased I think the intelligence behind it. Yeah, I think they bought it like last year maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that something that artists are able to like sign up for like a subscription, or is that just like an internal?
It's just like a company that like does analytics, and it's based off of, you know, songs being added to certain playlists and like them playing certain shows, and like there's just so many things that kind of are fed into it, and it's every week they send out an email with like a certain list of who's kind of bubbling up that week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm sure like I
that's-
think other like A&Rs and labels have access to certain ones too, but that's the one that Warner uses.
Well, I'm glad you're hitting on that, because I think a lot of artists assume that just because they have a unique sound or a cool voice, or they wrote some cool songs, that they can take it into an A&R person and play it for them or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're going to get a record deal off of that.
Yeah.
What you're talking about really is the other 80% of what goes into signing an artist is what else is going on.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like the Soda Tone is sort of helping them aggregate all the information behind each artist. What's actually going on? How many streams? What blogs are writing about?
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, and a lot of labels now have just research teams built into their A&R staff, and like that's how they find artists.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a huge part of it. I think there's still, you know, like you said, the percentage of A&R signing artists because they have an incredible voice or, you know, a unique perspective. And maybe they're an amazing songwriter first too. That also I feel like plays into it. But yeah, I think there's just so many factors now.
Yeah.
And it's just really, I feel like, to make sure that like their investment is well invested. And
Sure.
yeah, they actually have a fan base. They, you know, they have a plan. There's already stuff happening that they don't have to like wait 6 years and hope that it blows up then. You know?
Sure. Well, what you're really talking about is just artist development.
Yeah.
Artist development really essentially nowadays, I think a better way to say it would just be creating or building the audience for that artist, whoever that is. And you guys are doing a lot of that. So what are some of the things that you are encouraging your artists to do? What are some of the things that you guys as a team are doing?
Yeah.
Because, you know, with a new artist, you're starting from square one with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too is helping build out the right team for an artist, and, you know, a booking agent, a manager, a PR person, publicist, you know, I think, or even like sometimes a lawyer. But yeah, I think a lot of it right now is playing shows, getting out there. If you're a Nashville-based artist, playing shows outside of Nashville, because as we know, audiences in Nashville are, you know, mostly industry people or other writers, and their arms are crossed and they're not really paying attention. So yeah, finding real fans and people who, you know, you can really grow with. I think, you know, releasing new music often, like maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, have relationships with DSPs and Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. That's super important, and to have those relationships and to have a champion there. Other like radio formats like Sirius for Country the Highway, I think that's super important to have, you know, someone there who believes in a song that you have to. Yeah, really embracing social media, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook sometimes, Twitter sometimes. But yeah, I think, you know, you find so many fans on social media too, doing targeted ads of songs and, you know, really being like, you know, yourself on social media and like having like a personality and like being funny and like I feel like I follow Louis Capaldi because like he's funny on Instagram. Like I'm like he's music school, but also like he has so many Instagram followers probably because like he's hilarious.
It's just
you know?
entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, oh yeah, the music part of it, but
yeah, it's part of it. But it's just, it's him. It's him as a brand.
Exactly.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, the big thing that I wanted to really dive into, because you are in the unique situation and that you had the chance to work with and to be mentored by Busby.
Yeah.
Can you talk? I partially would love to do this just as a way to kind of honor him as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this podcast, but what were some of the biggest lessons, takeaways, mental notes maybe that you made from getting to work with him?
I mean, I think the biggest thing we talked about constantly was, because we dealt with it with him too. I mean, most writers, no matter how successful they are insecure and feel like they wrote their last hit already, and they're just trying to achieve this like unachievable thing in their mind. And it's, especially with social media, there's this constant comparison and like you feel like you're not good enough. So I think just making for me as a publisher, he's always talked to me about encouraging writers and making them feel like they're enough and feel like they're like the best writer that has ever been existed, you know. So
Yeah.
I think making writers feel like they're good enough and they have value. I think also just him as a human, like he was so good at remembering little details about people, and we talked constantly about like, okay, like who's that person's like wife's name? What's that? Where, like, how many kids do they have again? And like that stuff was really important to him. And even at his memorial service, a lot of people talked about, you know, they would write with him for the first time. They would say he likes their shoes or something, and like the next time they wrote, they had like a box of like the shoes he was wearing, you know, at the right. And so like he just remembered certain things like that, you know. But yeah, I think also he was one of those like geniuses that like he was two people in one. He was 100% a creative, 100% a business person. He was a better A&R person than I am. Like he was sending me artists on Instagram all the time to check out, and like, you know, now they all have like record deals, these people that he's been sending me. So like it's I feel like he was just a lover of music, lover of songs, lover of creatives. He like I would always know that if I could text him, he would answer right away and like listen to songs. And I never felt like I was bothering him. Like he's also just really great at like introducing me to people that like I probably would have to wait 5 years to meet, you know. And he just believed in me so much. And I think he does that with all the writers and artists he signed as well. And anyone like he meets, he really makes them feel like they're special. And everyone felt like, you know, they knew him so well and like they were his best friend. And like because he just makes them feel like they're like the like God loves them so much, and that he loves them so much. And his faith was a huge part of it too, I think. And I think also part of it, you know, is knowing the balance between work and family life. And when I first started at Altadena, I was engaged, I was gonna get married, and he always made sure that like I was, you know, not thinking about work when I was at home, and like vice versa. And like I was, you know, I felt like I had enough time to do both, and like I didn't have to like choose. He was just the best. I have so many stories, and he was the best. Yeah, I don't know how else to like.
Do you have a particular story? I'm just really interested in how this sort of manifested, because I the time that I got to spend with him, I could tell all of the things that you said were totally true. It's the real deal. Great family man, great businessman, great songwriter, great producer, strong believer. Is there a story that comes to mind that you can think of that maybe kind of illustrates that, of like, how did he make the people that he was working with feel special, important, you know, encouraged?
I think there's like so many like little ones. I mean, I think there was an artist we were trying to sign, and even though like he cared about signing them, but he also cared about them as a person. He hit them up and, you know, was like, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And they were like, oh, like I'm staying in Nashville. I can't afford a flight to like go home to my family. And I think it was probably South Carolina or something. And he was like, oh yeah, hold on one second. And then like the next text he sent him was like a flight home for Thanksgiving. And I think that just shows that like, even though, and we didn't end up signing him or anything, but it was just like he just cared about the person and like wanted them to be with their family on Thanksgiving. And I think that probably illustrates just all of that in one, you know.
That's so good. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, of course.
Well, on a more lighthearted note, we are going to get into the lightning round.
Whoa, okay.
Are you ready for that?
I'm nervous. Yeah.
Lightning round.
Favorite TV show right now?
Schitt's Creek.
Love that.
So good.
Moira, she's the best. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. I have two.
What kind?
A Shepherd Lab and a Beagle Lab. Yeah.
I was trying to think of the name. Would that be a Shab and a, whatever.
Blab.
A Blab, yeah. Favorite place to travel to?
Italy.
Where specifically?
Rome. I studied abroad there for like 4 months. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard you really like travel. So
yeah.
I love Italy too.
Yeah.
Favorite venue to see shows?
Probably the Ryman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite? So that's Nashville. Is that kind of like your favorite in the whole world?
I went to Red Rock last year. I feel like that's also up there. That was like so much history, but then also just the acoustics were incredible and it felt so intimate, even though it's kind of a bigger venue. So yeah, probably those two. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Last song that did well on the charts that you were able to work on in some way.
I'm still pretty young, so I mean, anything. I was part of like helping Busby work on the last Marin record, and that just won an album of the year from CMA. So probably Marin Morris, yeah.
For people who,
so that's probably the last thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, hey, you aced the lightning round.
Was not scary.
As we're kind of closing out, is there any sort of closing thoughts, things you'd want to encourage people with, something a thought you'd want to leave the listeners with today?
Yeah. I think persistence, especially for writers coming up and artists, and a lot of the writers and artists we've worked with have had other deals before, and just them sticking around and not giving up, I think really, it's the difference maker between someone who's successful and someone who's not. And I think we're always discouraged, and there's a lot of no's and rejections in this industry, but I think persistence and just continuing to stay on the path that you're on, that's the only advice I would say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Well, for those watching, we're going to leave her info, socials in the description and everything. Always remember, with all of these podcasts, you can check out all of that at madeitinmusic.com. If you loved what you heard, you want to dive deeper into the resources, madeitinmusic.com. And we are going to do a deep dive really quickly on what does Altadena look for when signing talent. So you can see all of that at madeitinmusic.com. Also, as I mentioned earlier, and as you brought up, we're always looking for people to join our team, interns, apprentices. I'm sure you guys are as well too, but if you're interested in working with us on any of those capacities, support at fullcirclemusic.com. Like I said, the internship is, a real world chance to get in, get your hands dirty, to serve. And the apprenticeship is basically that on steroids. It's a year-long commitment. It is a paid thing. Email us at support@fullcirclemusic.com if you're interested. And thanks for being with us on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
What's up? Thank you for watching the Made It in Music podcast season 3. If you want to check out any of the other episodes from season 3, click up here. And we talk in the show about these really cool deep dives with all this extra bonus content. And if you want access to all of those, click here.